Welcome to Overcrest. I'm Kris.
And I'm Jake.
And I'm excited for this because Jake has not put together a fun story time, sit on the carpet with all the little cool little roads.
Story time.
And
Cuddle round.
Story time. Cuddle around. I'm excited. Let's get right into it, man. Let's get
do it.
Right
All right.
into it. What do we got?
Well, Kris, war is brutal, right? It's perhaps always been the most brutal of human activities.
Do you think there's any...
Right away.
Any
just
way,
interrupting right off the
100%.
bat. One sentence in.
Do you, as a human being, think there is a possibility of civilization without war?
So here's what's interesting in my mind. War is simply like hatred and, well, not hatred. It is conflict on a large scale, right? So
So it's like a universal bar fight? Is that what you're saying?
Right. It's just war. We shouldn't differentiate war as being like war is different than anything else. It's conflict, but it's on a really, really big scale. It's an argument that got really, really out of hand.
So war is basically a joke starting as, hey, a Christian and a Muslim walked into a bar.
I'm sure that definitely
war
could
right
escalate.
afterward.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yes,
so to answer your question, no, because I don't think we'll ever get rid of like conflict in people.
I feel like as
That's
society
just free
goes
will.
forward, we're becoming a more secular society. You know,
Mhm.
religion is becoming less of a factor, at least in our part of the world. In other parts of the world, there's still a lot of religion. But I think it's still something that's evolving. I also think inequity can cause a lot of social unrest.
Oh, yeah.
It can cause a lot of war. And I think as we advance, especially with AI and advancements of energy, quantum computing, and
Hold on.
fusion technology. Yeah, I know you're probably getting into some of this stuff. That's great. I'm just thinking.
No. What I was just going to say is, sure, maybe that'll make conflict less of a thing, but that's between humans. Now you introduced AI and the overlords that we have to fight against, Kris. That brings up a whole nother level of war.
I don't believe in the notion that we are going to go to war with an AI. I don't believe in that.
You
concept.
believe in the three rules of robotics?
no, I believe that we will go to war with other countries' AI. I think our AI and another country's AI will manage our military and go to war. I think that's a possibility. But I don't think we're going to war with AI or against AI in a Terminator style situation where T-1000s are walking all over the place, blowing things up and, shooting miniguns out of, technical buildings. It's not going to happen.
I hope not. Regardless, war is a campaign of death and destruction and violence and chaos. And behind all the chaos and violence lies a quieter weapon, a more elegant one, Kris. Quote,
love.
No, that is the opposite. That is the opposite. Nope.
Oh, lots of wars have been fought over love, Jake.
Oh, really? Like which one?
I don't know. I probably had one earlier this week with all the stress that's going on with buying a house.
Oh, well, that's not a war. I was going to say, because that's fitting to what my first thing
I bet there have been enormous wars and conflict. Think of, I guess it's not love. I'm thinking like prearranged marriages in like.
No, there's literally the answer to the question that I just posed to you.
Oh,
but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait.
What?
Because you're derailing me. No, I was gonna say Helen of Troy. Literally, they fought the war, the Trojans, over Helen of Troy.
Well, there you go. See, love is a huge problem. Well, but we might actually be able to boil that down to just a war over women. Right? I mean, because realistically, women don't go to war over love. Men do. Men go to war over boobs, I think is what it is. Let's be honest. Honest.
Okay, I'm cutting you off. All right,
okay,
so I have this was supposed to be really like serious. I have an awesome quote I dug up and some history behind it. So here we go. Quote, all warfare is based on deception.
Yes. Is that an art of war type of thing?
Yes, it is. Sun Tzu. This concept is as old as war itself, and no one understood it better than Sun Tzu, the Chinese general philosopher and military strategist who lived sometime around the 5th century BC, or at least we think he did. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm going down a rabbit hole. So,
it's a real person or not a real person?
Yeah, well, here, like many ancient figures, Sun Tzu existed in the blurry space between legend and actual historical figure. So he's believed to have lived around the 5th century BC during what is known as China's spring and autumn period. Go ahead and ask.
What?
What the
Why
hell
did he
is
only
spring
live
and
for-
autumn period? No.
Well, my brain was no, my brain was like, that's only like 6 months. How does the guy only live for
Right.
6
No,
months?
that's not at all what it means. So I was like,
Hey,
why
turn
spring?
your mic down just a
Okay,
hair, just a
sorry,
little bit.
I'm getting very excited.
No, it's
already.
okay. It's okay. You can get excited. I like it.
Maybe now. There we go. All right. So spring and autumn period was a reference to like an era in Chinese history. It sounded more
Okay.
like a poem than an actual historical period. So I had to figure out what that actually meant for my own curiosity. So brace yourself. I'm going on a tangent even before we get started here.
I guess I'm thinking of the modern calendar, right? I'm
Yeah, no,
thinking
this
of
is not
how
it.
we do time. That's not how they
Not at all. In
mark
fact,
the passage of time.
yeah, Chinese history, as it turns out, is really confusing. So the spring and autumn period refers to a period of ancient Chinese history that falls within the Eastern Zhou dynasty. The Zhou dynasty, which lasted a long time, is divided into two parts. The Western Zhou, which is before 770 BC, and the Eastern Zhou, which is after that. So as if naming centuries after seasons wasn't confusing enough, then they threw in cardinal directions because, sure, why not?
I think it's probably because the sun rises and sets in the west and the east is probably why they measure it that way.
Yeah, then why was the west the first part?
I know. That's what I was just thinking. Why is the end of the day?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it
I don't
doesn't.
know. It's very
doesn't make
strange.
sense. So the first half of that Eastern Zhou is what's referred to as the spring and autumn period, which is referencing a historic chronicle of Confucius, who was apparently aptly named because this whole thing is extremely confusing.
Doesn't make any sense at
That's
all.
where I stopped. Exactly. So anyways, to bring the rambling back home, The Art of War, which is perhaps the most famous and widely read book outside of the Bible, was written by Sun Tzu during this time frame. The Zhou dynasty.
I wonder what a
power...
first edition of The Art of War is worth. It's probably what is it? He's probably written on a stone tablet or something, right?
No, that was Moses. That was Moses.
Well, that too. But imagine bringing one of those to the Antique Roadshow.
Oh yeah,
I've got a first edition of The Art of War, and it's like on a. That'd be awesome.
No, I did. It's kind of interesting though because this whole zone...
probably on a scroll. Honestly, like a scroll.
Actually, I don't know when like papyrus scrolls were invented. 700 BC? Yeah, probably.
Probably around the same time the font was invented.
The font.
Papyrus font.
You like how I started as a fake laugh and then I was like, actually, that is funny. Okay.
This is what I have to deal with, ladies and gentlemen. Anything I say that I think is funny, Jake does his best to think it's not funny. It's okay, Jake. I'm a funny guy. Keep going.
Usually it's not. Okay. So the Zhou dynasty, the whole reason that like Sun Tzu wrote this book and was involved in this is you have to understand kind of the context. So the Zhou dynasty saw power spread out among rival regional states within this bigger kingdom. So the states were constantly at war, forming alliances and betraying one another in a very like Game of Thrones-esque style political environment.
Okay. All right. Sounds like a TV show waiting to happen. Oh, hey, okay. All right. Now we're going to get, hold on. You got to turn that off. We're going to get DMCA'd. You got to stop. You got to be careful. We're going to get DMCA'd for that one. Oh, my gosh.
Okay. So whether Sun Tzu was a real general, a mythical figure, even a collective of military thinkers, it doesn't matter because the ideas attributed to him have survived over 2,000 years. His book, The Art of War, is one of the most enduring works of strategy in human history. And at the heart of his philosophy is that all warfare is based on deception, which is exactly...
What's interesting is how people apply this book to all kinds of things.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, so it's read up by
business.
Like,
lots of
business leaders. A lot of coaches read it. Like it's it kind of just runs the gamut of just ways of managing,
interacting in high stress and conflict situations.
Yes,
if you think about it, all relationships are conflict, right? There's always conflict. There's always a push and pull. Like, there's always power dynamics in relationships.
Well,
every relationship. And this is, I'm not trying to say this, it's not a bad thing.
Not every relationship has conflict. I shouldn't say
disagree.
Like, not in general. They may have conflicts during the span of the relationship. Anyway,
you're thinking of a conflict as a negative thing versus a conflict as a problem that has to be figured out or a dynamic that must be resolved. When
I
you
think
settle into a
conflict-
relationship, you learn your role in that relationship subconsciously. Like you and
still
I have a
learn
relationship
yours.
role. You have a role with your I'm still what?
Nothing.
You and your
Just
wife
the
have
way
a
to word.
relationship and you settle into the roles.
Yeah, of course.
And in the first part of your relationship, that's called conflict. And then you resolve the conflict. I'm not talking about you guys are beating the shit out of each other, you're not arguing. It's just a conflict of personality.
Actually, there is the 4 steps of like forming, which is forming, storming, which is conflict, norming, which is resolution, and performing, which is like doing the thing.
Oh.
So that is sort of that. Yeah, I get it. Okay. So anyways, Chris, these aren't just like clever tactics in deception or elaborate ruses. These are the kinds of deceptions that changed the course of history. This is a list of the greatest cons in military history.
Oh, right on. Sweet.
Yes.
I got one I can think of right away. I wonder if it's on the list. I'm going to wait.
Let's start.
And I'll tell
the
you
original,
when we get there.
With the original and still one of the greatest.
The Trojan horse. Yes! Woo! I am right. There it is.
I gotta go back and watch that movie.
Is that Troy?
Movie. Yeah.
Yeah, watch that with your wife because Brad Pitt looks like an absolute stud in that movie. He's always like wandering around all oiled up and all muscly.
Yeah.
And...
Can you imagine being like the oil girl who's just like, all right, Brad needs more oil again.
It could have been an oil boy. Why are you,
I don't know.
Are you being so
I was just thinking
particular?
of my wife wanting that job.
Yes, she absolutely would.
All right, so Chris, the year is 1184 BC, and the city of Troy stands as a fortress, its walls towering over the landscape. And for 10 long years, the Greeks laid siege to the city. Their warriors camped outside its impenetrable walls. But seemingly overnight, the Greek fleet had vanished, leaving only a giant wooden horse as an eerie parting gift. The air is thick with the scent of burning torches and the salt of the Aegean Sea. Inside the city, the Trojans celebrated their apparent victory, feasting and drinking into the glow of candlelight into the night. Unbeknownst to them, their fate had already been sealed. That night, while under the cover of darkness, a hand-picked group of elite Greek soldiers emerged from the horse's hollow belly, unbolted the gates, and let their armies in. And just like that, the city of Troy fell. Not to brute force.
Well, you forgot to say that this was a gift.
But by deception.
The horse was a gift to the city.
It was technically an offering to the gods.
Yeah, well, yes, but they let it in.
Right.
They let it into the gates, and then they got out.
Yeah, I'll get there in a minute. But do you know who won't deceive you?
I bet I can guess.
It's Nokian Tires.
That's right.
They have launched their newest tire, the Surpass ASO1. It's a high-performance, all-season tire made specifically for drivers who want the most out of their cars without sacrificing capability when the roads get slick. Why are you laughing?
Because I can't interject this comment during an ad because it's inappropriate. But
okay, so we'll just wait 1 second. Yeah, I will say that you and I know all too well how unpredictable roads can get, especially when you're out exploring. That's why the Surpass ASO1 is so great. It offers the grip of a dedicated performance tire, but won't leave you stranded if the road or weather gets rough. Not only that, comes with a 55,000-mile warranty and also offers Nokian's pothole protection. So if you happen to damage your tire beyond repair, Nokian will replace it for free. Check it out at nokiantires.com/surpass. Okay, back to the Trojan horse.
Jake, I have a question.
Yes.
What a terrible name for a condom.
I know, because it lets them in. It
lets them in.
It's
the worst idea for a brand of all time. You've got an impenetrable. You're supposed to have an impenetrable wall, which is the condom.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get your girlfriend pregnant.
Right.
What do they name it? The Trojan horse, which has allowed a couple of elite soldiers, and I would like to say I've got more than a couple of elite soldiers all stored up.
Very good. Okay.
Through the impenetrable wall. What a terrible name.
I know, it really is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the mastermind behind this legendary trick was Odysseus, king of Ithaca. He was known as a fierce warrior and a cunning strategist with a reputation as one of the most intelligent leaders among the Greeks. His idea for the Trojan horse came from his understanding that sheer force simply wouldn't break Troy's formidable defenses. Instead, he devised a plan to exploit the Trojans' pride and sense of victory. This is what you were getting at. The massive wooden horse, seemingly abandoned by the retreating Greeks, played on their own desire to claim a symbolic trophy of war. They
just left it there.
They left it there.
They didn't like write a letter and be like,
Nope.
"Hey, here you go. It's a really
They
nice
knew that the Trojans would be like, "Oh yeah, there's our trophy that they left for us." They left for the gods. Yes, exactly.
Hubris.
Yep. And the Trojan horse became more than just a story. It is a template. And over the centuries, generals and governments would take the idea and scale it in ways the ancient Greeks couldn't have even imagined. Fast forward several millennia to World War II, a conflict fought on every continent with the most advanced weaponry the world had ever seen. That might not be true. I don't think we actually fought in Antarctica, but, no. We won't talk about that. But even in the age of tanks, bombers, and radar, deception remained one of the sharpest tools in the arsenal. By 1944, the Allies were preparing to liberate Western Europe. The Germans knew an invasion was coming. It was no secret, but they didn't know where. Now, in order to understand the strategy of the D-Day invasion, Chris, we should look at the geography of the region. So Mr. Producer's going to pull up a map here, and now we can pause.
Nope, good. Go ahead. I got a notification on the thing. Keep going. Let's see.
Okay.
What do we got?
So England, up on the top there, was obviously the Allied stronghold in the European theater, and therefore required an invasion from mainland Europe to cross the English Channel into Nazi.
So that's the English Channel
France.
there in the middle.
Yes, it is. I had to look at a map because I didn't really understand. The obvious strategic choice in where to cross.
I'm not used to seeing this like this. This is very strange looking.
That is north. That's north, but you're just zoomed in.
Just...
That's the UK up there. It's England. So where would you try to bring your millions of troops across?
Pas de Calais.
Right.
Across the
narrowest
channel.
point. Right.
The one where everybody swims across.
Yes, and that is exactly what the Allies wanted Hitler to believe. Enter Operation Bodyguard, an overarching campaign of misinformation and deception. You can take that down, Mr. Producer. The most important part of this plan was actually codenamed Operation Fortitude. So along the southeastern coast of England, the Allies created the illusion of a massive force. Now, you need to realize that enemy reconnaissance during this time was mainly done via high-altitude photography, right? The Luftwaffe would set planes over the channel equipped with high-speed cameras, capturing stills of troop movements, convoys, equipment, and the like. So how does one make it appear that a massive force is assembling on the eastern coast without actually wasting all those valuable resources and equipment by parking it unused?
Mannequins.
Well, kind of. But no, this is even better, Chris.
Okay.
So that's the question. I don't know. How do we do that? Who do we ask? The masters of the imaginary themselves, Hollywood.
Hollywood, yeah.
The 23rd Headquarters Special Troop Division, otherwise known as the Ghost Army, was established, recruiting directors and set designers from Hollywood, along with art schools, advertising agencies, and the like. The details of this top secret unit were actually classified for 50 years, only being fully appreciated in 1996 when everything was declassified. So we only know about this fairly recently. So the first division of the Ghost Army was the 603rd Camouflage Engineers.
Ooh, that's a great name.
It was equipped with inflatable tanks.
Oh my God, look at that. Holy shit.
Right? Look at that.
I was expecting like some cardboard cutout stuff. Those are awesome.
It's so much better. The Jeeps were inflatable, trucks, airplanes.
Oh, wow.
They literally would bring these across, inflate them with air compressors, and then to make it look realistic, they throw the camouflage netting over it to make it look like we're trying to hide it. That is a limp cannon.
It's like a
that's
Viagra.
That's a
Viagra
right
commercial right
there,
here.
Chris. Yep.
So shit.
They could create entire dummy airfields, troop barracks, complete with fake laundry hanging on clotheslines outside.
Oh, look at that!
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah. They had, inflatable motor pools, artillery batteries, tank formations. They could set it all up within a few hours.
So they would do this overnight. They would set them all up. I bet the Nazis were like, how are they moving their troops like this?
Yep. How amazing is that?
That is incredible.
Another tactic used by them was sonic deception. So to your point, moving tons of equipment, thousands of troops, and assembling an invasion force, it turns out would make a lot of noise, right? So much so that it might even be heard across the narrowest point of the English Channel by Nazi listening devices. Enter the 3132 Signal Service Company. Aided by engineers from Bell Laboratories, a team from the 3132nd went to Fort Knox to record sounds of armored and infantry units onto a series of sound effect recorders that they brought to Europe. For each
also known as a microphone and tape.
Yeah, well, no, tape didn't exist yet. This says it was the predecessor to the tape recorder.
Okay, so it was when
I don't know. I don't
had
know
to have been like a super early tape.
State of the art wire recorders is what it said.
Wow.
So like they knew that, wax or vinyl wouldn't, I guess.
So they were using like early magnetic tape. Like
yes,
really
I imagine that's what it is. So for each deception, sound could be mixed to match the scenario they wanted to believe. Like there's just a DJ. Think of a 1940s DJ just like mixing up war sounds.
Yeah, throw a little tank in there. We need a little willies. Throw some willies in there.
Yep. And so they would literally broadcast these over the English Channel or later into like the direction of where they knew troops were like Germans were hiding out to make it sound like, oh my gosh, there's an entire battalion of tanks coming this way. It's so cool. Like who thought of that?
War is I don't want to say war is lame now, but this is pretty interesting.
It's fascinating, right? Another tool used by the Ghost Army was radio deception. Spoof radio, as it was called, was handled by the Signal Company. The Nazis were closely monitoring any allied signal traffic. And while any and all important information would have been coded, the Nazis learned to hone in on something else. The operator, Chris, or person themselves sending out these messages. So most of this radio traffic...
Are they triangulating, basically?
No. Listen, this is so much more interesting. So all of this radio traffic is sent using Morse code with the radio operator manually tapping out the message. So go ahead, Mr. Producer, just to show you a little clip back in the day. Period correct radio operation incoming.
Maybe.
This is just pause for dramatic effect, Chris.
I guess so. Yeah, Morse code.
Right. Okay. So, all right. I think we can even probably,
Yeah, we got it. Let's.
So here's the fascinating part. So you picture exactly what's going on. That's literally how they're sending messages, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you introduce a human into any system, no matter how simple, such as a beep on a radio signal, there exists a small imperfection. And as it turns out, the Nazis were able to study the traits of how these signals were sent so closely that they're able to differentiate extremely subtle differences in how each operator
how they did it.
Tapped out a code. Yes.
Just based on your cadence.
This is operator
cadence.
1. Yep. Or like maybe in between, breaks, you do it slightly differently.
Or if the way you say blimp is like your cadence of how you would do the B.
Isn't that crazy?
Gosh.
So the 23rd Signal Corps, the engineers knew this. They knew that the Nazis were listening for these small little subtle notes to figure out who operator was. And I'm sure they just had code names like that's operator 1 or Eins. Operator Eins. So it was actually thought impossible to perfectly mimic an operator's unique style. And you couldn't just replay what they had done because they're trying to decode it and they'll be like, well, hold on, this is just the same message over and over again. What's going on? But they did actually mimic it perfectly. They had people studying the way these people typed these messages out. And so when a particular division signal operator was sent to prepare for the real invasion in Normandy, the Ghost Army was able to perfectly mimic his signaling, making it appear that the unit was still stationed in the south of England.
This is like copying handwriting with your eyes closed.
Yes, literally. It's so crazy.
Wow. Incredible. And what a like
So, like, how is that what you would realize you can hone in on? I'm sure one of the radio
because they're
dudes was
looking
like,
for any angle. They're looking
Right.
for any angle that they possibly can.
I'm sure there's one.
What's interesting is how did they find out that the Germans were doing this?
Right.
Is the question. Is how do they
It's-
like what kind of espionage did they
Yeah,
have
that's
going
just
on?
there's so much like subterfuge of like, ooh, this guy knew that and everything else. But yeah, there's a lot of this going on. All right, so who, you may be asking, Chris, were the Nazis made to believe was leading this entire ghost force? None other than General George S. Patton himself. You see, the Germans feared Patton. He was thought of as the Allies' most aggressive and unpredictable commander. And to a stereotypical German, where things should be precise, planned, orderly, and predictable, a seemingly loose cannon of a leader was terrifying to them. Ja,
It's like
aber diese überpredictable hothead American general is awful. We have no idea what he's going to do next.
It's Austrian, apparently. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Hitler was Austrian, Chris.
That's
See?
true.
Yeah,
It's very true.
You're very welcome for that historically accurate accent. So it was the perfect appointment to stick Patton on, having just come off a high-profile incident that had forced Patton to be sidelined. This is a bit of a sidebar, but I had never heard this, and it gives a bit into insight into like Patton's entire demeanor. In August of 1943, while visiting an evacuation hospital in Italy, Patton was irate and verbally abusive towards more than one soldier who he found was suffering from battle fatigue. After screaming at the soldiers, he slapped them and ordered them back to the front lines. Patton was aggressively outspoken against cowardice and issued orders to his commanders to discipline any soldier making similar complaints.
Noah, give it back.
No!
I said give it back now. Noah!
That's Patton. That's Patton right there.
You can't just... Oh,
Oh, are you all right? How did you...
Barry!
We're gonna get DMCA'd. You gotta stop it. It makes me think like you're describing if Trump was a general. Is what this sounds like.
Yeah, just so the incident made its way to the press where it was met with a lot of criticism. Eisenhower felt the invasion of Europe was too important to risk any uncertainty, and that the slapping incidents had been an example of Patton's inability to exercise discipline and self-control, which it kind of is.
Sure.
So when the task came to publicly appoint a general to a fake army, Patton perfectly fit the bill.
Yeah,
and
why
it
not?
served to demoralize the Nazis. And speaking of morale, Chris, do you know what is good for morale?
I can think of a few things.
I like it when you find this month's Petrobox land in your mailbox.
Yes.
Petrobox is a monthly service made specifically for the automotive enthusiast. Each month, they carefully select items including tools, detailing supplies, apparel, garage gear, stickers, and publications to be sent right to your doorstep. It's a curated selection of the latest and greatest gear in the industry, and there's 2 different levels of subscription to choose from. The Petrobox Basic costs less than $20 a month, while the Petrobox Premium gets you even more gear for $39.95 a month. Check them out at mypetrolbox.com.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about Drivers Club too? Why don't we haven't talked about Drivers Club in a while.
No, we haven't. Yeah, the Overcrest Drivers Club, for as little as $5 a month, you can become a Drivers Club exclusive member, where we have limited edition content. We have exclusive episodes. We have all sorts of amazing stuff.
Can I tell you something?
Yes, tell me.
After this episode,
Okay.
I'm gonna wait like a second here because I know people probably skipped the other ad. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
We should time it.
I'm gonna announce this right now of
Okay.
what's coming out for Drivers Club members.
Ooh.
After this episode,
Yeah.
John Ludwig and I are getting together, and once a month, we're going to be doing an episode for his Patreon and our Patreon. It's going to be on both. You can be a member of both, or if you want to support both, that's fine too. We're going to have some exclusive content coming out, him and I.
I love it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, like, I don't know, maybe we'll talk about the pyramids, or I'm kind of curious.
Did you hear the latest thing they found under the pyramids?
That's what he and I are probably going to talk about, because I know he's super on the horse with that one. So,
Oh, I'm excited.
sign up for the
Good
Drivers
thing
Club.
I am actually a Drivers Club member, a paying
There you
member,
go.
I'll have you know.
There you go. And plus, you get to support the show. You get to support Overcrest. support Jake and I and Mr. Producer. Yeah, we would really appreciate it. $5 a month. There's other things you can do too if you want to get a print or something like that. I don't really sell prints. If you want to print a mine from anything, they're there. T-shirt, we'll send you a shirt from the Overcrest store. We'll get you all dialed in.
All sorts of awesome benefits.
But mostly you get to just be a more integral part of the Overcrest family. We would really appreciate it.
Yes, which is a benefit in itself because on the Overcrest Discord, you have your own channel.
Most of the talking,
non-freeloader channel.
The non-freeloader channel. Most of the talking that happens on the Discord is that I come in and I check the Drivers Club only section. I type in there projects that I'm working on, secret stuff that's coming up. I give more rally hints there than anywhere else. Yeah, it's a little more candid. I'm a little more open about life and personal life and projects and everything. Yes, less deception. Yeah, Sun Tzu would be very unhappy with the Drivers Club channel on Discord. Yeah.
All right. So, of course,
overcrestproductions.com/Drivers Club.
Thank you.
Sign up. Help us out. It's $5. If everybody that listens to this podcast hopped on and joined up for the Drivers Club, it would make a huge difference. We could do so many cool things that we've wanted and planned to do and just can't because there's just not enough money. We'd really appreciate it.
All right, Kris. Operation Fortitude wasn't the only work of deception orchestrated by the 23rd Special Troops Division. One of the weirder and darker projects was known as Operation Mincemeat, and it concerned the misdirection of the 1943 Allied invasion of Sicily. Do you know about this one, Kris?
No, but it sounds disgusting.
Well, first, a fictitious officer of the Royal Marines was fabricated. His name would be Captain Acting Major William Martin. This Captain Martin was given the fake orders of transporting top secret documents to British generals, which were locked inside a suitcase, which was then handcuffed to the officer for secure transport. The documents included the plans to invade Greece and Sardinia and not the island of Sicily, which is actually what the real strategy was. To sell this ruse, the corpse of a vagrant man who apparently died by eating rat poisoning was a detail they included, and with no other context, was dressed in official British officer's attire and outfitted with the aforementioned briefcase. There he is.
My God, this is morbid. Holy shit. I hope you're watching on Spotify or YouTube. Good Lord.
The body was then transported to the southern coast of Spain by submarine and launched close to shore. I say launched. They said released, but I have to imagine maybe they fired it out of the torpedoes for dramatic effect.
I don't know that the body would survive that.
No, probably not. Regardless, the next morning, a Spanish fisherman discovered the body and brought it to the Spanish authorities. The Spanish government, who claimed neutrality, shared copies of the documents with the Nazis. Immediately, German reinforcements were shifted to Greece and Sardinia, leaving Sicily.
What if no one found the briefcase?
It was a small investment for a big reward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
It's just a dead body and some Xeroxed copies of documents.
Like, who cares if it didn't work? But it's a huge payoff. It did. And it did. It primed Sicily for the successful invasion. And I'm now lisping my words.
That's all right. Just take it easy. Slow down. Maybe,
All right. Here's what's interesting about this whole thing, Kris. If this elaborate plan sounds like something straight out of a spy novel, it should. You see, the ploy was one of many outlined in what was called the Trout Memo.
Okay.
In it, Rear Admiral John Godfrey, the director of the British Naval Intelligence, compared the deception of an enemy in wartime to fly fishing, which I presume was a favorite pastime of his. Quote, "The trout fisher casts patiently all day. He frequently changes his venture and his lures and his venue. If he has frightened a fish, he may give the water a rest for half an hour, but his main endeavor is incessant." Okay, weird analogies, but the memo lists 54 ways.
That's about patience, right?
It's about patience and how you're deceiving the fish, right? If you scare them here, you go over there. Or like you can place a lure over there and it'll bring the fish here, whatever. It listed 54 ways that the enemy, like trout, may be fooled or lured. So here's the thing, though. While the paper was published under Godfrey's name, it was actually found to bore all the hallmarks of Godfrey's personal assistant, none other than Lieutenant Commander Ian Fleming.
Oh,
yes, Ian
that
Fleming.
Ian Fleming.
The same Ian Fleming that went on to create
James Bond. Yeah. Okay.
James Bond.
Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
Look,
My name's Bond. James Bond.
I love the color palettes in these movies.
So good. Let's just keep this
My
going.
name is Bond.
I
No.
watched
Bond.
all of this because it's pretty fun. All right. Anyways,
I love the color palettes in those movies. It's great.
it's great. All right. Now, not every con in wartime happened on the front lines. Sometimes the most brilliant deceptions happen thousands of miles away at home. You see, in the wake of Pearl Harbor, America was in full panic mode. The Japanese had struck deep into the Pacific, and many feared the West Coast, especially California, could be next. And the fear wasn't unfounded, Chris. Japanese submarines were spotted off the coast of San Francisco Bay. Bombs were dropped near Santa Barbara. The American mainland, for the first time, felt vulnerable. In Seattle, Washington, the massive complex known as Boeing Plant 2 was churning out bombers to the tune of a dozen a day.
Wow.
The factory
Imagine
was
that assembly line,
enormous.
man. That's
It
an enormous
was
feat.
enormous. Over 40 square acres is this building. Wow. From the air, it stuck out like a sore thumb. And
I can't imagine that we would be able to do this today, Jake.
a dozen a day.
I cannot imagine we would be able to do this today. Somebody would be in there with a clipboard and somebody would be standing on a ladder, but they were actually setting a tool on the spot where this is not a shelf. Don't put this here.
Right. Or
And then
OSHA
somebody would get,
regulations.
they'd get taken away. They'd be put in a little room and watch a training video on how to use a ladder.
True. Yeah.
Or
What-
something. We just can't.
I don't, without getting into politics or anything else, what I think is very interesting to think about in that time period, and you kind of bring it up, who were the ones building these planes, Chris?
Women or
Right.
men that were incapable of going to war for whatever medical
Sure.
or mental reason, whatever.
But think about that. If you're the woman at home, why are you working? Why are you doing this?
Because your husband is out there and you want this plane to be in the
Exactly.
skies.
Exactly.
Because
And
they had no other
I
choice.
can't think of any other time
Civic
in history
duty. Civic duty.
to have this just universal, motivation to help and to produce. It's
It's a very interesting
fascinating.
time because if you think about how propaganda works, the propaganda for World War II was incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a
Rosie
huge
the
amount
Riveter.
of visual movies. Any movie you went to was like they were all filled with propaganda in the beginning. It's interesting because you'll go, oh, the 50s and 40s and 50s were all this, roaring 20s. It was such a beautiful time in America. The government was pretty fucked up back then, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh,
there was a lot of things. I have an episode that I want to do about the history of gold in the United States, which will
Ooh.
blow your mind.
Oh boy.
It is unbelievable. But this was a very propaganda related time. But there was also, most towns were small towns.
Yeah.
It's not like it is today where information is instantly accessible.
No, it's not. Anyways, it was fascinating. And so they're all working at this plant, this Boeing plant in San Francisco.
Do you remember when we interviewed the guy
In Seattle.
that worked at Lockheed Martin? I think it was Buzz Carpenter. We were
Yeah.
asking him about the Colonel Buzz Carpenter, about the building the SR-71 Blackbird. And we just asked him, how did you, because they had like 300 people working.
Yeah.
How
How
did
did you
in
keep
the Skunk
it a
Works.
secret?
How did you keep it? And he just goes, these people love their country.
Yep.
That was the answer. That was the answer of how this was kept a secret. Now, I'm going to have to imagine there's some tradecraft involved, true, of
Sure.
the government monitoring this stuff.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's a little bit of these people love their country, but also, these people love their country, and they're probably going to ruin my life if I say anything at all, or I'm going to lose my job or whatever. I'm sure these people are all compensated very well. But anyway, it was just this sense of duty that I think did have a
think
lot
that's
to
good
do
way
with
of
it,
saying
which most people now think as a romantic pastime that's not possible anymore, which is kind of sad because things are so. I don't think people back then, and I'm just projecting right now, I don't know, But I think people back then didn't identify a huge part of their personality and way they go throughout their life by political identity.
No, absolutely
It was
not.
family,
That's
it was
a fact.
community,
Yes.
it was
There were
it was
other
church.
outlets that you would identify yourself with.
Yes. And it
And-
was almost always your community that you lived in. You didn't
one-
go to
one
war for the United
sense
States.
of community or another.
Yeah, you went to war for your community. It was your duty to protect your community, which in a larger sense is the country too. But we just don't have that
I will
anymore.
also say a massive factor is I don't think politics was as divisive as it is today back then either. There wasn't as big of a gap potentially.
I'm not sure. I know that my great grandfather, Kluel, was he was known as very Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you still did, but I think, I asked my grandma, I remember asking her this when I was young. I'm like, who did you vote for? I think it was like when Bush was running against Clinton or something like that. Who'd you vote for? She goes, it's none of your business.
I like that.
And that's, I think it was just not something you did. Now you can't get away from everybody's political opinions, no matter what side it's on. It's just in your face all the time. And I pretty much, I don't care which side you're on, you start posting politics, unfollow, goodbye, delete, see ya, don't want to know, don't care, I don't want someone I like and care about to suddenly, I don't want to be acutely aware that their moral foundation is corrupted based on their politics. I don't want to know that. I just want to hang out, have a good time, be your friend, and just enjoy myself. But you suddenly become so aware of someone's deep values and morals, which normally you only do that with a couple of your close friends.
Yeah.
Everyone else is just an acquaintance. But now we have all this stuff shoved in our face. I don't know. Sorry, bad rant here, but
it's fine. It's just, it goes back to how information and everything is more accessible now and how that's caused a lot of
it's not a good
different
thing.
Issues.
It's not a good thing.
So Chris, back to our massive factory, 40 acres, which from the air sticks out like a sore thumb, right? It is literally, they might as well have painted a red target symbol on the top.
Bomb me.
Exactly. Yeah. And in a time before satellite surveillance and radar jamming, it was a big problem. So how do you hide a massive industrial building the size of a farm field that is surrounded by suburban neighborhoods? Simple. You make it a neighborhood. With the help of Hollywood set designers, once again, and engineers from the Army Corps of Engineers, Boeing turned the roof of their aircraft factory into a fake suburban neighborhood.
Do they build houses on the roof? Oh, here we go. Camouflage guards, huge plant.
Amazing. So wait a second and it'll show, because I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Gosh.
Yeah, that's a roof. Do you see the left?
There's topography.
Yes. There's fences.
This is unbelievable.
Farmland. Yes. Okay. So from the air, it looked like a sleepy California
40 acres
suburb.
of this?
Yes. Complete with fake streets, model houses, trees, cars.
People wandering around?
Yes. There's clothes
people
hanging
wandering
out
around.
to drive. And they would hire models and actors to sunbathe up there in bikinis. So
not only is it not real and they're hiding something,
yes,
but they're also demoralizing the hell out of the enemy.
That is exactly my thought. 100%
women
my
in
thought.
bikinis.
Why would they have
everywhere?
women in bikinis? That's why. That is 100% why. It's so great. So you're the Japanese and you're like, all right, I need to study, these spy images that came from the plane. And they're like, look at all the beautiful women in bikinis over there in America. What are we doing?
All these women in polka dot tops and stuff. Oh, amazing.
So
demoralizing.
Good. Yes. So the houses were built out of canvas and plywood, low profile structures meant to mimic rooftops and still give depth. The trees were chicken wire and mesh, painted to resemble leafy suburban canopies. Workers had to duck beneath these props as they entered the actual factory, hidden underneath. It was like something out of a movie because it literally was.
It's interesting that this would never fly anymore because resolution is too high. But back then, the resolution was kind of shit.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, it was very, very impressive. So that's what it looked like before. 40 acres of just a roof,
impressive.
right? And then, so like even out in like the parking lot areas and where it wasn't.
Oh, that's
the roof
it right there.
itself- Oh yeah, I think that is it. You can't even tell. But like, look, even in the parking
couldn't even
lot,
see
they
it.
would put like burlap and stuff over it to hide the fact that it's a bunch of cars parked there. Yeah, keep going up, producer. Oh,
Wow,
look
this
at
is
that.
awesome.
Yep. And what's funny, I think this might be the photo even. So because it was all burlap and it was all fake. Yes, there it is. Synthetic Street and Burlap Boulevard.
Well, they couldn't. This isn't like I was watching Enemy of the State yesterday, where they're zooming in on Will Smith and finding out what kind of watch he wears.
Yeah.
This isn't that. You're not reading
No.
street signs in
No, exactly.
1939.
But even if they did, like, it's not. It's just an inside joke, more or less. So
Yeah,
it's
very clever.
Yeah, the idea, of course, was to fool Japanese reconnaissance planes or bomber
It
crews.
must have cost a fortune to do this, to build
Yeah.
this.
Well, and
Unbelievable.
it
amount of
wasn't
money.
just this one Boeing plant. Other factories, Lockheed, Douglas, North American Aviation, they all did the same thing. In Burbank, California, they covered an entire aircraft facility with fake orchards and streets. In some cases, real people, again, were hired to walk around the rooftops to complete the illusion.
That's amazing.
From above, the area looked perfectly ordinary, and from below, they were building the machines of war that would go on to dominate the skies over Europe and the Pacific. Again,
That
at the
would've-
tune
that
of a
would've worked
dozen
really-
a day.
A dozen a day. Well, how did they get the planes out of there? I'm imagining they took out like fuselage came out at night. Of course, they probably pulled all the planes out of there at night
Yeah,
on a
I
truck.
wonder just a
Fuselage
dozen at a
and the
time.
wings are separate, and they
No.
probably.
I
Yeah,
bet they fly them right out of there at night.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the airport was right there, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, from the map. Yeah, they just rolled them out and flew them away.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It was one of the most ingenious uses of camouflage in military history. Not
What
designed
was
to
it?
deceive.
Was there a name for this? Like a name for this entire project?
You just have to Google Boeing Plant Number 2. That was
Okay.
it. Yeah. What's interesting though, and especially on this list, it wasn't designed to deceive enemy troops on the battlefield, but to protect the production lines that would eventually win the war back home. And after World War II, Chris, warfare as we know it changed forever. And with it, a new enemy emerged. Communism.
Mm-hmm.
During the
That's
Cold
where the
War-
women in the bikinis really would have done some damage.
Oh, yeah. I know,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Yeah.
during the Cold War, deception took a whole new dimension. This wasn't about fooling the enemy. It was about fooling the world. And few did it better than the Soviets. The tactic has a name. Maskirovka. It's a Russian military doctrine that blends camouflage, disinformation, decoys, and psychological warfare into a full-blown art form. The underlying goal was to make your military and the entire country look bigger, badder, and more advanced than it actually was.
And that's really possible when the government is everything.
Right.
Literally does all the things.
Yes.
It just has gosh, what's it called? I was just reading the book again the other day, but it was called the organ. The organs of the government was what it was called, because it was just like it was like a human being. It was like an organ. Yeah,
I
gross.
don't like that. I don't like that.
No, not a big fan.
No.
Oh, the Gulag Archipelago. He
Yeah.
talks about the organ of the state.
All right. Well, to understand how deep the deception went in the Soviets' case, we need to go back in history once more. In the late 1700s, Grigory Potemkin was a Russian nobleman, military leader, and close advisor, some say lover, to Catherine the Great. He was brilliant, charismatic, and a bit of a showman, Chris. In the 1780s, Catherine planned a grand tour of New Russia, a recently conquered region in what is now the Ukraine and Crimea, which kind of sounds interesting that was the new Russia, that I feel like
Mhm.
Russia is also trying to currently make the new Russia. Anyways,
No comment.
Potemkin was basically put in charge of developing the area, but progress was underwhelming, right? So the story goes, to impress Catherine, I have the pronunciation up top here, so I have to keep looking at it. Potemkin staged an elaborate illusion. As the Empress floated down the Danube River in her royal barge, which is a great way to get around and see the country, she saw tidy little villages along the shore. Happy townspeople waving, productive farms with a bunch of, fruit and brightly painted houses. The image of a prosperous, well-managed province. But behind the scenes, those villages were all fake. Facades built
Sounds like North Korea.
for her visit. Oh, I get there. Some
Yeah.
say they were actually a little more than wooden cutouts propped up like stage sets. Others claim entire fake towns were moved from location to location ahead of the Empress's route and then reassembled quickly, so she'd think she was passing through a bunch of these different settlements. Now, historians still kind of debate how much of this is true or an exaggeration, but again, it really doesn't matter because the idea stuck. Today, a Potemkin village...
Imagine this, Jake. Imagine being so convinced on the political mechanisms of communism
that you're willing to fake it.
That despite the suffering that's happening during this time, and there was suffering during this period of time, big, like bad, millions. Despite the suffering, you believe so much in it that you're going to make a fake town just so you can perpetuate the idea that maybe, just if we try communism just a little bit longer, it'll work fine. So build a fake town because we don't have a real one.
And so in this guy, I'll play devil's advocate from his position. He was in charge of building up this area. So it is fully his intent and his belief to the core that it will resemble this. It will be this prosperous of an area. The towns will have little pink houses and everyone will be happy running through the street, but we haven't quite got there yet. So we're gonna show them what it can be, right?
The problem is that all these people had unlimited power.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you have unlimited power in the hands of limited people, it always leads to destitution.
So today, a Potemkin village refers to any attempt to make something look better, stronger, or more advanced than it really is. And during the Cold War, the Soviets turned it basically into a national policy. At military parades in Moscow, the world would see convoys of massive missiles rumbling through Red Square. But the thing is, many weren't even real. Some were hollow shells, nothing more than metal tubing painted to look intimidating. Others were the same missile shown multiple times going around the block, and then they'd repaint it or renumber it differently in the back alley. It was like a military version of musical chairs. But why?
And nobody stood up to it because it's all a lie, and no one could be the one to stand up. And I have a quote here from the book that I want to read you because this is the concept of this is from the Gulag Archipelago, which is by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he is the most incredible writer from the Soviet Union at that time. If you have not read Gulag Archipelago, it's a slog, but you should.
That seems like something I would have skipped in high school lit.
Probably, college, probably. And how we burned in the camps later, thinking, and you know what they're talking about, the slave camps, labor camps.
Okay.
What would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family? Or if during periods of mass arrests, as example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door and at every step on the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of a half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else was at hand. The organs would have quickly suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough. And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward.
Wow. Yeah,
everybody fear. It's someone else. It's not going to be me. It's someone else. This goes all the way. I mean, from the guys in the camps were thinking this about being at home. They could have done something, but also the guys that work in the government too. Everybody knows it's wrong, but you just keep going with it, and you keep going with it, and you keep going with it, and then pretty soon it's the norm, and it just doesn't feel wrong anymore.
That's what
it
I was going to
becomes
say.
normal. And one thing that I think I want to mention is when you think of all the people that were doing these things, and you think of the Nazis, and you think of all this stuff, this is borderline. I always am scared to talk about stuff like this, but they were just regular people. They're just regular
Yeah.
people, just like you, just like
Everyone
me.
likes to think that they would be the one to stand up.
You wouldn't. Sorry, you
Yeah,
wouldn't.
I know what you mean.
It's 1 in a million that stands up.
Yeah.
No one's gonna stand up because they've all got their own family to take care of, and you just don't do it. And propaganda is real. Groupthink is real. There's nothing unique about millions of Germans or tens of millions of Russians or communists or whatever you want to call it. There's nothing unique about them genetically or biologically or mentally or anything like that. They're just human beings.
Yeah.
It's just, or if you think of you could turn it to any group that you think has committed evil or atrocities in human history. They're just people. So remember that, and you don't have to give grace to these people because they committed evil acts, but just apply that knowledge to yourself when you're thinking about things and what other people and how you apply your beliefs to other people's beliefs based on what your tribe currently is thinking. Just be really careful. Just be really careful.
It's a stupid comparison coming after that, but we just watched the most recent Hunger Games movie, which whatever, I didn't care for it. But the one quote that stands out to me is that, like, at the beginning they're like, "So what is the Hunger Games for?" And he's like, "To remind the people to remain oppressed," or something. And at the end he goes, "So what is the Hunger Games really for?" And he goes, "To remind everyone it's only human nature, and we're that close to going back to animalistic ways, and to be
the
evil
thin
ourselves."
veneer
Yes.
of society.
Exactly. That's what it is. All right. So speaking of which, we've learned that perception is everything. And the Soviets...
We are off the rails so many times in this episode. I am sorry.
Yeah,
it's all my fault.
all right. It's we're adding context, color, and everything else, I guess.
That's okay. I'll just continue to freeze out here in the garage. It's fine.
Well, the Soviets wanted the United States and its allies to believe that their military was on par with or superior to anything the West could produce. And to be fair, it kind of worked, Chris. American defense spending soared in response to the perceived threat. Intelligence agencies overestimated the USSR's capabilities for years. It wasn't until the 90s, after the Soviet Union collapsed and records were unsealed, that the world really realized a lot of that so-called military might was obsolete, non-functional, or entirely fake. It was
And that's what we call a paper tiger.
Yes. Or, in this case, a Potsdamer parade rolled out in front of the entire geopolitical stage, not just the riverfront. And this concept, as you mentioned again, was widespread beyond the borders of the Soviet Union. In North Korea, for example, there exists still a town along the border called Kaijongdong, visible from the South Korean side. It's got brightly painted buildings, streets, and lights. They all come in at night. It's a perfect image of a utopia. But no one lives there. It's literally a Potsdamer village. It's built in the 1950s to impress or intimidate observers across the border. Even in modern cities, you'll find echoes of this idea. Government buildings built to look grand and imposing, while the surrounding infrastructure crumbles. Model neighborhoods shown to foreign press, while real living conditions are hidden. Temporary beautification projects ahead of events like the Olympics or G20 summits, cleaning the visible surface while literally pushing the trash just out of view. In the world of architecture as well and design, Potkmin has become shorthand for form without function, facade without substance. But the concept endures, even here during the boom of the great American West. As settlers, prospectors, and railroad companies pushed westward, entire towns popped up almost overnight. Gold was discovered, rail lines were planned, land was speculated on, and wherever opportunity shimmered on the horizon, people moved fast to stake a claim. A boomtown would spring up with a post office, maybe a saloon, a brothel, and a general store. Buildings were thrown up quickly. The stereotypical Old West building is usually nothing more than a single story with an attic and a standard pitched roof. But in order to appeal larger, more inviting, and more civilized, a 2-story facade was put on the front to appear like a full flat-roofed commercial permanent building.
You still see that today.
So
that facade. Yeah,
yes.
It's interesting.
Mr. Producer, I did have a link. We'll skip that one because, yeah, to your point, Chris, it's fascinating because
You'll see
they're
it on the front of a
actually-
Kwanzaa hut. Like if a Kwanzaa hut is in an urban area, you'll see the little half.
usually
half
that is
circle
for
building.
the doors, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not a good. But downtown Afton, literally less than a half mile that way, there is a couple, like 3 examples right in a row of this architecture, because it's all in a historic town built like in the 1850s.
Yeah, so you live in zip code like 1.
I do.
Of Minnesota.
55001, Minnesota
Yeah.
1, which
Yep.
is really cool because it's such a teeny town.
It's easy for me to remember when I have to put the zip code in on the, because we're hey, if you guys want to send us anything, it's P.O. Box 223,
Yeah,
Afton, Minnesota 55001.
right.
It's really easy for me to remember because I have to put it in when I'm scouting for the rally all the time
Yeah.
at gas stations.
Right.
I'm always like, what's
All
the
right.
fuck?
5 is
zeros-
Minnesota, and it's 1.
and it's 1. Yeah,
Yep,
it's very easy
exactly.
to remember.
Yeah,
I look forward to all your fun spam that you send us in. It'll be fun.
that I have to go get because it's right
Yes,
down
that
there.
you have to go get.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
I sent Mr. Producer a street view, but I don't know if it's pulling up from, just because it is amazing how it's literally right there. This exact thing that we're talking about. But these false front buildings served the same basic function as a Potsdam village: impress newcomers, suggest permanence, lure investment, make a temporary encampment feel more like a booming civilized town. And it did work. Photographers would capture these streets straight on, of course, not showing behind it, and send them back east. Developers would publish illustrations and posters showing bustling Western settlements, and the money would roll in. Railroad companies were notorious for using this illusion of prosperity for their advantage. They'd name towns, plot them on the map, build a few structures, often little more than depots and hotels, or in some cases, literally just paper towns, nothing there. And they would promote them as the next great hub of commerce.
And then once you're there, you were so poor that you're there. You're stuck.
The real play was land speculation and calling for investment on it. So we've gone from wooden horses to rubber tanks, from fake villages on Russian riverbanks to false front saloons right down the street. But there's one thing. Deception hasn't disappeared. It's just changed. It's gone digital, Chris. And speaking of digital,
yes.
You can get all of your parts online. A digital retailer, FCP Euro, which will not deceive you. The
Hold on.
opposite
Yeah, I
of
was gonna
deception.
I was
Chris.
going to say they're.
You didn't like my little. You didn't like my
I do.
transition there.
I do, but
Digital.
they're
Digital
very
shopping.
very honest over there.
No, so
It's-
honest, in fact, because they have the lifetime replacement guarantee. You can literally send back your old parts, and
They're
give
going to
you.
get mad at me at some point if I keep sending them back this vacuum pump from the Trooper.
Wait.
I'm on my 3rd one now.
Well, it keeps
Because
breaking, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I'm running it at a duty
I was
cycle
going to
that's
say
too
you're
high.
overclocking it.
Yeah, I think so. It's not good.
Well, either
But-
way,
See how it goes.
BMW, Porsche, Volvo, Audi, Volkswagen, and more. Their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert-assembled kits to make shopping simpler. Whether you're doing a suspension overhaul or an oil change, these kits really take all the guesswork out of the process. No more wondering if those bolts happen to be one-time use stretch bolts that I probably would reuse anyways, or if you need a gasket to go with that, just select the kit you need and you're good to go. Plus, every product they sell, as I said, come with a lifetime replacement guarantee. They're shipping from both coasts. You can get shipping for free in 3 days or less. We love them. Check
They're
them
awesome.
out.
They're awesome.
FCProad.com.
Great guys. When you're ordering parts, just think about the place. There's a lot of places to order parts. A lot.
Yes.
Just order from the one that supports the community that you're a part of. That's FCP.
I love that. All right. So, Chris, in a recent episode, I uncovered one of the most sophisticated military deceptions ever uncovered, Stuxnet, and the
Yes, I
sabotage of
remember.
Iran's nuclear enrichment program. But Stuxnet was just the beginning. Today's cyber warfare isn't just about sabotage. It's about shaping narratives, influencing elections, destabilizing trust, creating confusion at large scale. Governments, private actors, AI systems now all have the ability to fabricate realistic news stories, generate deepfake videos, spoof public officials, and flood social media with coordinated disinformation campaigns. The scariest part is the goal and rationale. It's not to convince the public of something. You're not trying to convince them that this is true. You're trying to make them doubt that anything at all is true that they see.
Well, that's going to be interesting as AI comes out here. Just in the last week, it's gotten really, really uncomfortable because I don't know how anybody's going to be able to tell what's real and what's not pretty soon. And I feel like I'm going to start needing to show me the negative is what it's going to come down to. Show me the negative. I want to see it. I want to see that this was shot on film, which can also be spoofed.
I was going to say, all you have to do is shoot a film of the image that was created.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's really all that you can do, though. What else is there?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's interesting because the ancient battlefield that we started with in Troy, it had its literal, smoke and chaos and fog. Today, the fog of war is literally digital. It's the blur between what's real and what's being manipulated. It is deception. So we have, Russia's information warfare in Ukraine, to auto-generated propaganda bots, to state-sponsored troll farms in basements halfway across the world. It's fought in the minds of the people as much as it is down in the trenches. And yet, in some ways, it's kind of the same story we've told throughout the episode. Build a lie convincing enough, and people will carry it through the gates themselves.
I'm going to finish this episode out with what I tell my kids every night before bed. We do all of our little things and tuck-ins and whatever. And then the way we do it is we repeat back. So repeat back to me, okay? This will be kind of fun.
Okay.
Don't lie.
Don't lie.
Don't cheat.
Don't cheat.
Don't steal.
Don't steal.
And then we would always say it together. The last one we always say together is do the best you can. So
that.
Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, and do the best you can. And that's really all you can do. All this stuff gets weird. And I think as we go into this age where less and less becomes identifiable as real or not real, I would like to see, and what I think the antidote is coalescing in the community that's near you that you can see, feel, touch, and hear.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can think of is a return to local community.
Localized,
because everything else is
experiences.
indecipherable. Yep,
Yeah.
Everything else is indecipherable as real. That's why I really love what we do with Overcrest is we have a community, which is you guys listening, and we have events that we do where people can get together and be together, people of a common thread, and can share experiences and grow relationships. And I think that's really special. I think that's the antidote to all of this.
Yeah,
and
I really do love, because literally we bring together people of every gender, race, creed, and every other differentiator and divider you can think of.
Yep.
And it's all just having a good time with each other.
It is the antidote, community. So, participate in your community. If you're tired of it, you put your phone away and go somewhere, go to a board meeting, go sit with someone, go mingle in a coffee shop, whatever the case may be, go do it.
With that, take care.
We will see you guys next week.